the quality of software in the finance industry isn't the highest. Like I said, I think the key reason there is that technology is not seen as a core part of the business. It's seen as like a cost to the business. Only when you bring technology and the business together along with product, you really make something that works well and like serves a purpose.
Hello guys, welcome to Developers in Dev. So this is a YouTube show where we bring top leaders to you guys, share their thoughts, their ideas, and basically all the lessons learned in their career. I'm Jorge, the host of this show, and software engineer at Eventbrite. And today we have Ian. Ian, say hello to the camera. Say hello to the people. So Ian is basically the VP of engineering here at Freetrade, a really cool startup in London, and he has a really amazing background working on the top companies in the industry like Amazon, Snapchat, and even Motorola, when it used to be like a super cool company.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting to bring Ian thoughts and ideas to the show. So let's get started. You study math and computer science in Bath, which is like number 6 ranked university here in UK. So it was just right in the middle of the dot-com bubble from 1998 to 2001. So what did you learn from all those years in the college?
The biggest thing was learning what I wanted to do as a career, I suppose. So I went in, it was like you say, mathematics and computing. Maths was fine, but you know, I hadn't done any kind of professional coding up until that point, you know, hadn't spent such an amount of time in it. So I totally learned from that experience that, yeah, computing was the way that I wanted to go after university.
Were you so, like, driven into that, like so decided, like, I want to study computer science and math, or it was something like more like, let's try and let's see? Yeah,
so at the time, computing wasn't, you know, now they have like a dedicated computing course. At the time, it's like mathematics, and you can do some computing on the side. So, you know, I knew I was interested in computing. Didn't really know what it meant career-wise, so it wasn't like, you know, forefront in my mind. But after doing it for a couple of years, it was like, yeah, this is what I should be doing for a career.
So after you finished the college, you started in Motorola.
Yeah.
So, what did you learn from those first years of experience working there?
It was great to spend all of my days coding. It was fantastic. You know, I definitely enjoyed that. You know, spent most of the time like upskilling compared to what I'd learned at college. I also learned that embedded software is not really what I wanted to do full time. So I took the time, you know, gaining the kind of foundational experience working there. And then in my spare time worked on some other projects as well. So some more kind of web, UI, visually focused projects.
Yeah, most of the time it's more important to understand what you don't like.
Yeah.
So you can keep playing and keep understanding what I really want.
Exactly.
So that's really cool. And how did you get that first job, that first opportunity?
Yeah, it was quite a difficult recruitment process. So Motorola did what they call the milk round in the UK. So they go to the universities and try and recruit people from university. I went on this kind of one-day candidate interview process. There was about 20 candidates who went through that process. It was quite extensive. There was like a fake board meeting that took place and a few other exercises like that. And as you say, it was just after the dot-com crash. So half of us, say 10 of us, were supposed to go through, and then they kind of stopped everything, notified all of us that maybe no one would be coming through. And then in the end, only 2 people managed to get through, so I was lucky enough to be one of those 2 people.
Wow, that's really cool. So it's really interesting because you have been, as you said, like working as writing software, but also now and many years in your career as a leader, as a manager. What are the main differences between both worlds?
When you write software, I mean, it can be difficult and sometimes you get unexpected results, but for the most part, what you put in, you get the same. It's deterministic, right? What comes out is the same. With people, that's not necessarily the case, and everybody's different, right? It's having, you know, maybe it's like dealing with several languages all in one go. So that's kind of the biggest bit of adapting you need to do.
So handling people, managing people.
Yeah.
So basically, your point is, for me, it's really easy to write software because at the end of the day, you will find a way to make it work, and you don't necessarily depend on these external people and external factors. But when you are managing people, it's the opposite. It's just not about you, it's about others.
That's right, and you can't have, I think in software, and something that probably most engineers struggle with moving to engineering management, you have full control over the outcome, right? Even if something's very difficult, you work a bit harder at it, like change some external input and you get the right result. With people, that's not the same, especially with many people, that's not the same.
At which point of your career you decided, hey, I'm fine, I love writing software, but I want to manage people?
It happened a bit organically a few times in my career, in the sense of I was the most senior people in a small company. But when it really stood out, it was at Amazon. I felt that I could offer a lot more value by helping organize the teams. I felt that we could move faster as an engineering team if more structure was put in place. So I kind of pushed for that leadership role.
How could you describe your management style? How do you approach people? Making sure that you develop the best, or that's so Amazonian, but how do you develop other people?
Yeah, I quite like the Google expression actually, which is like trust and verify. So, we hire very senior people. We have certainly the first cohort has all been senior, so that I can really let people get on with the job. But then equally, I think it's important to go deep sometimes and really understand what's happening. Part of your role as a manager, as well as removing roadblocks for your team, is just to make sure that there's some degree of consistency and some structure that helps create that consistency. So making sure we're hiring, we have a very high bar, that our operational excellence is maintained to a high level, and that requires people to kind of make sure that takes place.
Can you first start telling what is Freetrade, what are your mission, your goals, and why are you cool?
Yep. I mean, I'm actually a customer of Freetrade, so I can easily talk about it from my point of view. Before Freetrade, if I wanted to go and invest in the stock market, obviously you get stock options if you work at a big tech company, but otherwise there's no easy way in. And I literally went looking, and it's all very expensive. If you want to go and buy a share in Amazon, it's going to cost you £10 just to make the purchase, that kind of money. And also, it's very alienating if you don't know the space. There's lots of graphs, etc. For me, Freetrade, when I found it, was like, wow, this is, it's a consumer-based app. Looks like using Spotify or whatever else it might be. Immediately drew me in, and it's going to be cheap as well, right? So ultimately, we want to give people like that access to the stock market and being able to invest for their future, kind of even things up a little bit.
So what made you change, you were working before at Snapchat?
Yeah.
Before coming here. So why that change? What brought you to Freetrade, and why did you decide to take that decision to move here?
Yeah, well, as I said, I was actually a customer, so I was on the newsletter. So Victor, our CMO, sends out some pretty fun newsletters, and I spotted that the new office they moved in was actually right above the office that Snapchat was in. So that's how the conversation started. But why move anyway? As I was saying, it's a product that I really truly believe in, and also, we're at a very exciting stage. We're growing quickly right now. I think we could become a world player, and to be at that from 10 or 12 people upwards is a very exciting opportunity.
Yeah, and also I would say that coming as a VP of engineering and create that impact and basically create all these processes and bring people, I think that sounds really exciting. How are you now going through that part of your career? How are you feeling that now?
Yeah, so I think when you work at a bigger company, if you're aspirational, you've been working hard, you have a lot of these ideas, but it can be hard to implement. So like you say, working at a smaller company is an opportunity to put those things in place. And so far, they've gone okay. They've definitely got us through the last 9 months, and we scaled the company, it's 4 times the size that it was. It's going to continue to be a challenge, but it kind of feels like you say, a perfect learning opportunity. The same way as if you new to a bit of technology, it's very exciting when you're at that first stage.
So now I would like to understand better what it means to be a VP of engineering, and of course especially here in Freetrade. So what are your responsibilities, and what is your day-to-day look like?
I think a VP of engineering or a CTO, the key goal is you need to make sure that you ship software, to customers, not just build it, but actually ship it to people, and that it's of very high quality. And something that's unique to Freetrade or unique to financial startups is that it really needs to have a certain amount of trust, and you can only build that trust by building quality into the product. So from an engineer's point of view, it's actually a great opportunity because we can't really be slapdash.
So then I guess adding to that, you need to be close to the business and to the CEO, or how does this kind of relationship work in your regular normal day?
So we'll have regular exec meetings where we go through key things which don't happen operationally, things outside of operational, so what's happening to the business, or things which might significantly impact the business, even from a technology point of view. There's also a responsibility on me to start to develop a framework for how we manage those things as we scale. So understanding what potential future costs might be to the business from a technology point of view, or what a like security risk might be from a technology point of view. That's the kind of more strategic work. And then, a couple of hours later, I might be fixing a bug to help the team out.
So for me, I could say that the most important part to have a successful team is most of the time the culture. How people work with each other and what are those relationships and yeah, like come to your workplace and feeling happy and feeling excited of what you're doing and proud. So if you need, how could you describe the culture, the engineering culture for Freetrade?
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of putting together some engineering values right now, which hopefully encapsulates some of that. We have like 4 key values at the company level, and then in the engineering team we kind of extend those. So a key one we have at the business level is like ownership, and within the engineering team, like pragmatism and being product focused, some things that we introduce into that. And just generally, I think we've got like a hard work culture. There's some really important stuff that we're building, but we also know when it's important to like take a break, take the time off, and like go and have a social, whatever it might be.
And when it comes basically to create that culture, how do you create them? Like, how do you start saying this is the kind of engineers that we are looking for?
I think it's very hard to make a culture once you already hire people. I think what you really have to do is look at the team you have. Obviously, you've like hired them or like engineered it in a particular way that you have that team, and then start to formalize that culture. So kind of write down what your values are. And then from that point on, make sure you adhere to them. And that is like, you've got to hire for them. So you actually got to look out for those indicators when hiring. And you've got to make sure at performance review that you're using those things. And in 360 feedback within the team, how are these things being referenced? And that's really powerful when it comes to making big decisions. It's like, okay, how should we behave here? What are the values we adhere to? And that kind of helps.
And how much do you think when it comes to creating a new company or coming to a new company, you brought from all your past career? It's like you see many influences from you from working for Snapchat or Amazon for the kind of culture here, or do you start from scratch and say, let's see what it goes?
Definitely leverage what you learn from bigger companies. So for me, Amazon has like fantastic procedures in place, good processes in place to make sure things happen in the right way. Snap was really good, has a mix of Amazon and Google engineers, and I think what that taught me is actually to take risks a little bit. That you don't have to be so constrained around a single problem, then you can look for new opportunities.
What do you think at this point of Freetrade are first the technical challenge as a Freetrade as a company, and then your more role-oriented challenges?
Yeah, the biggest technical challenges we have, or a few actually, but the financial industry is quite opaque, and the technology providers don't really set a very high standard. So I think, they go through the processes, but I think a lot of legacy technology companies within finance see technology as a cost center rather than a core part of the business. Obviously at Freetrade, like technology is the business. We're a technology company, we make an app. So working with those legacy providers is a big challenge. We're undertaking some big projects. We're bringing some of the software that we currently use in-house and building it ourselves. So that's kind of a massive undertaking. And then from a process point of view, we've got to make sure we have the structure for the teams to scale. So we've already started an exercise around that to break the company up into what we think are the best kind of silos, the best ways of executing. And then more long-term is making sure that what I find important and what the other leaders find important is communicated, documented, and systemized in a way that like the entire team can continue with those things and we can scale.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that since you are working with other banks or with other platforms that you need to integrate and get data from or send data to, you mentioned that they are not the most straightforward systems that you could potentially handle. Why is that? Because I don't come from security or banking or fintech background. And the way I always see this is high security, really high quality software. But maybe it's not the case. So what's going on there?
So I should say first and foremost, like, your money's safe. There is a lot of process that exists around the technology that makes sure that nothing really fails. But I think we've seen with some public examples recently that actually the quality of software in the finance industry isn't the highest. Like I said, I think the key reason there is that technology is not seen as a core part of the business. It's seen as like a cost to the business. Only when you bring technology and the business together along with product, you really make something that works well and like serves a purpose.
You could say that if a person is thinking, I want to work in fintech, a startup like Freetrade is gonna be better from the engineering point of view, because I don't know, maybe you can use more recent technologies, different processes.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I'll talk about like pragmatism. We know what we have to do from a compliance point of view. We want to be ahead of that, but we also know that we can leverage new technologies, and that allows us to move more quickly. It's more fun for engineers who join this kind of team, and it means we can build a better product with less effort.
What is the most interesting project you have worked in Freetrade?
Definitely, we're building a brokerage platform in-house right now. It's quite a complex beast. It's going to be a lot of effort. The guys are going to be working on it probably this quarter and another quarter ahead, but it's employs something called event sourcing, which is quite interesting, and it definitely has the most depth to it.
Cool. So now, like the last questions of the interviews. So the banking sector is, you're working with real money, and
Yep.
that's very challenging. So how could you describe the difference between working in another non-banking company and writing software in a bank? Like, what are the main difference, or the way people should think differently?
Yeah, I mean, if you're most kind of diligent engineers who really care about their craft, it's kind of the ideal role in many ways, because you may be forced in some companies to kind of ship without tests, but that's actually, the compliance risk analysis you do as a financial company that you're obligated to do. But if you were lucky enough to have Dan, who leads the kind of compliance team, really ensure that like there's a process that exists where the engineers are kind of brought to task or have to explain and justify the quality of the software they have. So if we have an outage, we need to take a record of the outage, like how long did it last for, and then we need to have like a post-mortem process in place, and from that we can say, well, we need more automated tests here, or we need to take more time on this thing. So it's kind of an ideal situation for building good software.
Mm-hmm. So now, like, what are the technologies that you're most excited about?
Yeah.
Or what are the kind of fields inside of the engineering that you're really, really passionate?
Yeah, like I'm a big fan of serverless. We had a blog post recently that talked about that. I think that's the way that most people would be shipping software, the same way that most people don't have their own on-premise hardware anymore. I think there's some challenges in that, but it's constantly improving. So it's kind of nice to kind of work through that and see what the cloud providers bring out. Also quite interested in a design pattern that we're using here to help us kind of shore up the accounting process, and that's something called event sourcing, and that gives you some real safety in the way that the software is built and gives you a good understanding of where everybody's money is at all times.
How do you see, like, if you need to like envision the future, 5 years from now, how good you want to see Freetrade?
I really, if anyone is thinking about investing, like, we're the app that they think of. The same way, from a banking point of view, you think of Monzo. If you think of a new fintech, I want us to be like that for investing. Like, we're building the team to do that right now. I think we can definitely, if we execute well over the next couple of years, we can definitely get there.
And how do you see the future of banking?
How do I see the future of banking? A lot more frictionless. I think a lot of barriers. When banking was first made digital rather than digitized, there was a lot of like knee-jerk panic. I don't know if you recall, but first you could access it online, then everyone started to send you dongles, and it actually became more painful to bank. I think we're going to solve those problems in different ways now, kind of security problems in different ways. It's going to be much easier to share money as well, and share your resources and understand your money. So you might have an investment account with us, but you may have a cash savings account with somebody else, and you put those two things together and be able to see a summary of it. because I am someone who's quite self-driven, the big companies become frustrating after a while. So, and I think you may find there's greater opportunity to be had at that startup. And if you're someone who's not really sure what you want to be doing, then a big company can kind of offer that. With a startup, it's harder to know like what the quality of the team is going to be like. Say if you're looking for a career in a startup, I'd say the best way to judge them is through the interview process. If the interview process feels easy, that's kind of a bad sign.
Video it's over, that's all. But you can still watch more videos. Maybe you can enjoy this video, or maybe you can enjoy this video, or maybe this one. Or you know what, maybe you can watch all of them. And by the way, if you really enjoy the channel, subscribe right here. Just one click and you're